On the morning of May 24th, 2019, a mother of five dropped her children off at their private school in one of Connecticut's wealthiest towns and simply vanished into thin air. Her car was found abandoned in a park. Her home showed signs of a violent struggle. And by nightfall, surveillance cameras would capture something chilling. Her estranged husband and his girlfriend driving through the streets of Hartford, stopping at more than 30 different trash cans to dispose of black garbage bags. What police found inside those bags would reveal a crime so calculated, so brutal, that it would shake the entire state and expose dark failures in a system meant to protect abuse victims. This is the story of Jennifer Dulos, a woman who did everything right and still lost everything. New Canaan. Connecticut is the kind of place where nothing bad is supposed to happen. With a median household income of over $190,000 and tree-lined streets filled with colonial mansions, it's a sanctuary for wealthy families who want the best schools, the safest neighborhoods, and the picture-perfect American dream. It's the last place you'd expect to find evidence of a brutal murder. Jennifer Farber Dulos seemed to have it all. Born in New York City in 1968 to a prominent family, her uncle and aunt had founded the Liz Claiborne fashion empire. She grew up surrounded by privilege and opportunity. She went to Brown University, earned a master's degree in writing from New York University's Tisch School of the Arts, and became a writer and devoted mother. Her mother, Gloria, was a philanthropist, her father a banker, and Jennifer had the kind of pedigree that opened doors. In 2004, Jennifer married Fotis Dulos, a real estate developer who had also attended Brown University. Fotis, who was born in Turkey and raised in Greece, had come to America with big dreams. He'd earned an MBA from Columbia and started his own luxury real estate development company called Four Group, building high-end properties across Connecticut. They settled into a 10,000-square-foot home in Farmington and had 5 children together. From the outside, they looked like the perfect couple, successful, attractive, raising a beautiful family. But behind closed doors, something was very wrong. By 2015, Fotis had begun an affair with a woman named Michelle Triconis, a Venezuelan-American equine therapist he'd met in Connecticut. Michelle was accomplished in her own right. She'd host a show for ESPN in Argentina and specialized in helping children with disabilities through horse therapy. For 2 years, Fotis hid the relationship, disguising trips with Michelle as business travel while Jennifer stayed home with their children. In March of 2017, Fotis finally admitted the affair to Jennifer, and her world shattered. 3 months later, in June, she did what domestic violence advocates tell abuse victims to do. She filed for divorce and an emergency motion for full custody of all 5 children. She moved with the kids to a rented home in New Canaan, 70 miles away from Fotis in Farmington. And then she did something else that would later prove tragically prescient. She documented everything in her court filings. "I am afraid of my husband," Jennifer wrote in her divorce papers. "I know that filing for divorce and filing this motion will enrage him. I know he will retaliate by trying to harm me in some way." She described incidents where Fotis had exhibited what she called intensifying irrational, unsafe, bullying, threatening, and controlling behavior. She alleged that on June 3rd, 2017, Fotis became enraged, appeared out of control, and physically trapped in a bedroom while verbally attacking and physically intimidating her. She claimed he had threatened to kidnap their children if she didn't agree to his divorce terms, and that he had purchased a gun that same year. The family nanny would later testify that she witnessed Fotis try to hit Jennifer with his car and chase her around their home. Jennifer's journal entries from as early as 2012 showed she had been living in fear, describing feelings of fear, weakness, and reluctance to confront Fotis. This wasn't marriage falling apart. It was a woman trying to escape from someone she believed would hurt her. For 2 years, the divorce proceedings dragged on, becoming one of the most contentious cases in Connecticut state history based on the sheer number of competing motions filed by both parties. And with each passing month, Fotis' situation became more desperate. His luxury real estate business was failing. Court documents showed Four Group had not generated any cash flow in 2019. He owed Jennifer's parents $2.5 million in personal loans for his business. He was approximately $7 million in debt. Meanwhile, Jennifer had access to unlimited family resources and was winning the custody battle. Fotis had been held in contempt of court multiple times for not paying legal fees and failing to complete court-ordered parenting programs. A psychological evaluation that might have helped his case remained incomplete because the psychologist had walked off due to non-payment. He was losing everything: his children, his home, his business, his reputation. And in the spring of 2019, prosecutors would later argue he decided there was only one way out. But no one saw what was coming next. Friday, May 24th, 2019 started like any other morning for Jennifer Dulos. She woke up in her rented home on Wells Lane in New Canaan, got her 5 children ready for school, and at 8:05 in the morning, she dropped them off at New Canaan Country School. It was the last time anyone would see her alive. What happened in the next 2 hours and 20 minutes will become the subject of intense investigation, forensic analysis, and courtroom testimony. But investigators believe they've pieced together the horrifying truth. Fotis Dulos had a plan, and he'd been preparing for this moment. That morning, Fotis had driven to Wavani Park in New Canaan with a bicycle in his truck. He left his vehicle there and rode approximately 3 miles to Jennifer's rented home on Wells Lane. He brought his employee's Tacoma pickup truck. The keys had gone missing from the 4 Group office that morning, and Fotis later told the employee that Michelle had taken them. And, critically, Fotis had left his own cell phone back at the Farmington home he shared with Michelle. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was planning. While Jennifer was driving her children to school, Fotis was waiting, lying in wait. He knew her routine. He knew exactly when she'd return home. And when Jennifer pulled into her garage sometime after 8:05 that morning, he was there. The attack was swift and brutal. Blood spatter would later be found on the garage floor and walls, indicating what forensic experts called a serious physical assault. 2 separate sources of blood spatter suggested Jennifer had been struck multiple times in that garage. There was blood on a Land Rover parked in the garage, blood underneath it, and blood on Jennifer's own suburban SUV. Medical experts would later testify that the amount of blood lost meant Jennifer could not have survived without immediate medical attention, care she would never receive. Investigators believe Fotis used zip ties to bind Jennifer's hands. He then placed her body, or what was left of her, into her own Chevrolet Suburban and began the gruesome work of cleaning up the crime scene. He wiped down surfaces, but he couldn't get everything. His DNA would later be found mixed with Jennifer's blood on a kitchen faucet inside the house. A partial bloody footprint remained on the garage floor. The cleanup was thorough, but it wasn't perfect. By 10:25 that morning, Fotis had driven Jennifer's Suburban, with her body inside, to Wavani Park, where his employee's Tacoma truck was waiting. He transferred Jennifer's body from the Suburban into Tacoma and abandoned Jennifer's vehicle near the park, positioned in reverse against a pile of leaves. And then he vanished, taking with him the answer to a question that would haunt investigators for years. Where is Jennifer? Back at the Farmington home, Michelle Triconis was playing her part when a friend called Fotis' cell phone that morning. The phone he had deliberately left at home, Michelle answered. Prosecutors would later argue this was a prearranged alibi designed to make it appear Fotis was home when he was actually 70 miles away committing murder. Michelle would tell police different versions of Fotis' whereabouts that morning, first claiming he was home when she woke up, then later acknowledging that wasn't accurate. As the day wore on, Jennifer's absence became alarming. She missed appointments. She didn't answer her phone. For a woman who was always present for her children, this silence was deafening. By evening, friends and family were frantically calling and searching. At around 10 o'clock that night, Jennifer was officially reported missing. But by then, Fotis and Michelle were already disposing of the evidence. At approximately 7 o'clock on the evening of May 24th, right around the time Jennifer was being reported missing, surveillance cameras in Hartford, Connecticut captured something extraordinary. A truck was making its way along Albany Avenue, stopping every few blocks. A man would get out, walk to a public trash receptacle, and toss in black garbage bags. Then he'd get back in the truck and drive to the next location. Stop after stop after stop, more than 30 times. The man was Fotis Dulos. The woman in the passenger seat was Michelle Triconis, and what they were throwing away would seal their fate. When New Canaan police arrived at Jennifer's rented home after the missing person report, They immediately knew something terrible had happened. Her Suburban had been found abandoned near Wavney Park earlier that evening. Now, standing in her garage, officers observed what looked like an attempted cleanup of a blood-like substance. The scene had all the hallmarks of violence: blood stains, blood spatter, signs of a struggle, and evidence that someone had tried desperately to erase it all. By the morning of May 25th, the Western District Major Crime Squad had obtained a search warrant and was processing the scene with forensic specialists. What they discovered was even worse than they'd feared. There wasn't just a little blood. There was a large quantity, indicating Jennifer had suffered injuries so severe that medical experts said she could not have survived. The blood spatter patterns told a story of violence, of someone being struck multiple times, of a life being extinguished in that quiet suburban garage. But where was Jennifer's body? And who had done this? The investigation moved quickly. Detectives learned about the contentious divorce, about Jennifer's fears documented in court filings, about Fotis mounting debts and desperation. They learned about Michelle Treconis, the girlfriend who lived with Fotis. And then they got the break they needed: surveillance footage from Hartford. When investigators saw those videos of Fotis and Michelle making dozens of stops along Albany Avenue, they knew exactly what to do. They sent teams to Hartford and began the painstaking, disgusting work of digging through public trash cans, retrieving garbage bags, and cataloging every single item. What they found was a horror show. Clothing in Jennifer's size, soaked in her blood, a bloody bra and shirt, paper towels saturated in blood, cleaning supplies, brooms, mops with blood on them, clear, disposable ponchos drenched in blood, the kind someone might wear to avoid getting blood on themselves during a murder. And perhaps most damning of all, cut zip ties with Jennifer's blood on them, suggesting she had been bound. DNA testing confirmed it was Jennifer's blood on all these items. The zip ties were particularly chilling. They indicated Jennifer had been restrained, unable to fight back or escape. The poncho suggested premeditation, someone who knew there would be blood and took steps to protect themselves. This wasn't a crime of passion or a moment of rage. This was planned. But the evidence didn't stop there. Detectives tracked down an employee of Fotis Company, a man named Paul Gumieni, who told them about his missing truck keys on the morning of May 24th. When police examined Gumieni's Tacoma pickup, they found a blood stain on the fabric of the passenger seat. They cut out a sample and tested it. It was Jennifer's blood. Jennifer had been in that truck. Her body had been transported in that vehicle. 5 days after Jennifer's disappearance, surveillance cameras captured Fotis bringing the Tacoma to a car wash and detail shop for professional cleaning. Michelle Treconis met him there. It was consciousness of guilt. Plain and simple. Why would you clean a vehicle that contained a murder victim's blood unless you knew exactly what you'd done? On June 1st, 2019, exactly 1 week after Jennifer vanished, police arrested Fotis Dulos and Michelle Treconis. The charges were tampering with physical evidence and hindering prosecution. Both pleaded not guilty and were released on $500,000 bonds. But investigators weren't done. They were building towards something bigger. As summer turned to fall, the case grew stronger. In September, both Fotis and Michelle were arrested again on additional evidence tampering charges. Police had found more evidence, more connections, more proof that these two people knew exactly what had happened to Jennifer Dulos. The community watched, horrified. Jennifer Dulos became the #1 Google search term in Connecticut in 2019. Everyone wanted to know, would there be justice? And then came January 7th, 2020. Connecticut State Police arrested Fotis Dulos and charged him with capital murder, and kidnapping in Jennifer's death. Michelle Treconis was charged with conspiracy to commit murder. And a third person, an attorney and friend of Fotis named Kent Mawney, was also arrested and charged with conspiracy, allegedly connected to a makeshift grave found at a gun club. All three pleaded not guilty. Fotis was released on $6 million bond and placed under house arrest, wearing a GPS ankle monitor. His trial was scheduled. The evidence was overwhelming. And Fotis Dulos knew that he was going to prison for the rest of his life. He had one more move to make. On January 28th, 2020, Fotis Dulos was supposed to appear at a bond hearing that could have sent him back to jail. He never showed up. When police conducted a welfare check at his Farmington home, they found him unresponsive in his garage, sitting in his running vehicle. It was an apparent suicide attempt by carbon monoxide poisoning. Beside him was a handwritten suicide note dated that same day. "If you are reading this, I am no more. It began, I refuse to spend even an hour more in jail for something I had nothing to do with." Even in death, Fotis proclaimed his innocence, maintaining that he had been framed, that someone else had murdered Jennifer and planted evidence to destroy him. 2 days later, on January 30th, Fotis Dulos was pronounced dead at a hospital in the Bronx. He was 52 years old. With Fotis dead, the murder charges against him were formally dismissed in March 2020. He would never stand trial. He would never be forced to answer questions about what he did to Jennifer, about where he put her body, about how he could take the mother of his 5 children away from them forever. Those answers died with him in that garage. But Michelle Troconis and Kent Mawhinney still face justice. And Jennifer's family, particularly her 88-year-old mother Gloria Farber, who now had custody of all 5 grandchildren, deserved to see someone held accountable. The legal proceedings moved slowly. Michelle maintained her not guilty plea, with her defense attorneys arguing she was simply another of Fotis' victims, a woman fooled and deceived by a man she thought she loved. Her family insisted she was being scapegoated, that as a Latina in the case, she was a perfect person to blame in Fotis' absence. Kent Mawhinney's case languished on the trial list for over 2 years with no trial date set. Finally, in January of 2024, Michelle Troconis went to trial in Stamford Superior Court. For 5 weeks, jurors heard devastating testimony. Jennifer's elderly mother Gloria took the stand and described her daughter's devotion to her children, her voice breaking as she recounted the years the grandchildren had been without their mother. The family nanny testified about Fotis' threatening behavior and unauthorized presence at Jennifer's home. Fotis' employee described the missing truck keys and Michelle's comments about Jennifer. And forensic experts walked the jury through the blood evidence, the DNA matches, the scientific proof that Jennifer had been violently murdered. Michelle's defense portrayed her as a vibrant, accomplished woman who had been deceived by Fotis Dulos. Her family and friends testified that she specialized in helping children with disabilities, that she radiated light and brought good energy to everyone she met. They insisted she couldn't have known what Fotis was planning, that she believed they were simply going to Starbucks when they drove to Hartford that evening. But the evidence was overwhelming. On March 1st, 2024, after hearing closing arguments and deliberating, the jury found Michelle Troconis guilty on all 6 counts. Conspiracy to commit murder, 2 counts of conspiracy to tamper with evidence, 2 counts of tampering with physical evidence, and hindering prosecution. As the verdicts were read, Troconis sat with her head down and cried, then rested her head on the table, sobbing, before marshals cuffed her and led her from the courtroom. On May 31st, 2024, Michelle Troconis was sentenced to 20 years in prison, suspended after 14 and a half years, followed by 5 years of probation. Before sentencing, she addressed the court, expressing regret for being in a relationship with Fotis and saying she had learned things before and during the trial about Fotis Dulos, a man I thought I knew and loved. Jennifer's family members spoke, some saying the sentence wasn't nearly long enough. Michelle's attorney immediately announced plans to appeal. The final chapter came in June of 2025, more than 6 years after Jennifer's disappearance, when Kent Mawhinney appeared in court. In a stunning development, State's Attorney Paul Ferencek admitted that despite years of investigation, we do not have sufficient evidence to prove the charge of conspiracy to commit murder beyond a reasonable doubt. The felony conspiracy charge was dropped. Mawhinney pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charge of lying to police about having phone contact with Fotis on the evening of May 24th, the evening when Fotis and Michelle were disposing of evidence on Albany Avenue. He was sentenced to 11 months, which he had already served. When asked if he had anything to say to Jennifer's family, Mawhinney responded coldly, "Obviously it's a tragedy, but you know, I have as much responsibility for that tragedy as you do." Justice, it seemed, was incomplete. Michelle Troconis was behind bars, the first and only person to face real consequences for Jennifer's death. But Fotis Dulos, the person prosecutors believed actually murdered Jennifer, never stood trial. Kent Mawhinney walked free. And most hauntingly, Jennifer's body has never been found. She was legally declared dead in October 2023, more than 4 years after vanishing, but her remains are somewhere undiscovered. Deny her family even the small comfort of a burial, a grave, a place to mourn. The 5 Dulos children, who were 8 to 13 years old when their mother disappeared, have been living with their grandmother Gloria ever since. At Michelle Triconi's sentencing, Jennifer's daughter Noelle, who was A at the time of the murder, gave a victim impact statement. "You betrayed me," she said, her words aimed at Triconi's. "It scares me to put my trust in other people." These children lost their mother to violence, their father to suicide, their childhood to trauma, and their inheritance to debt. Fotis' estate was declared insolvent. He died owing more than he owned, leaving his children with nothing but grief. The Jennifer Dulos case changed Connecticut. In June of 2021, the governor signed Jennifer's Law, expanding the legal definition of domestic violence to include coercive control, the pattern of psychological abuse, intimidation, and control that Jennifer had experienced from Fotis. The Connecticut Judicial Branch issued special recommendations for improving how courts handle domestic violence cases. Judges became more cautious, more willing to take threats seriously, more aware that the next case could be another Jennifer Dulos. But the case also exposed devastating failures. Jennifer did everything right. She documented the abuse. She told the court she feared her husband would retaliate. She moved to a separate residence with the children. She engaged with the legal system. Yet the family court judge continued to grant Fotis visitation, rights despite Jennifer's credible warnings. The system that should have protected her failed. And research shows Jennifer's case is tragically not unique. From 2008 to 2023, 944 children in the United States were killed by divorcing or separating parents during custody disputes, with many deaths identified as preventable if courts had heeded warning signs. On a spring morning in 2019, Jennifer Dulos dropped her 5 children off at school and drove home to her rented house in one of America's wealthiest towns. She thought she was safe. She thought the legal system would protect her. She thought that doing everything right would be enough. It wasn't. And somewhere in Connecticut, in the woods, in the water, in a place investigators have searched but never found, Jennifer Dulos remains missing, a mother stolen from her children, a victim of a system that couldn't save her, and a reminder that domestic violence knows no boundaries of wealth, education, or privilege. Her body may never be found, but her story and the urgent need for reform it represents must never be forgotten.